I prepared this simple card object in UI Canvas, which has a child image object for icon and another image for outline. This will help us show highlights later. To make the cards interactive, we'll use Unity's event system. Now, we'll implement these interfaces. I pointer down handler detects when you touch a card. I drag handler tracks dragging motion. I drop handler handles when you release the card. Let's make the cards visually react to touch. Add a reference to the outline image and a method to toggle its highlight. Call this method and on pointer down to highlight the card when it's selected. Also, reset the highlight and on drop. Attach this script to the card prefab and test it. Now comes the fun part. Create a new script called Pairs Manager and make it a singleton. Create a reference to the line renderer in Pairs Manager. Enable the line when a card is picked. Update the line start and end positions as the card is dragged. Get the card reference and highlight it. In the dragging state, set the line's end position to the mouse position. In the drop card method, disable the dragging line visual and set the dragging card to null. Now, in the card script, call these methods. I prepared this simple line renderer for the dragging line visual. Pass its reference to the pair manager. Because we want to keep track of connections, create a simple connection class that holds all the necessary data for storing connection information. This includes the cards that are being connected and the line that connects them. In its constructor, simply pass all the data. Take both cards' positions and set the line's start and end positions accordingly. Also, highlight both cards and enable the line renderer. To create connection lines, I created a container reference for the lines and a reference to the line renderer prefab. Then, to store those lines, I created an array. The pair count is important because we will generate line renderers based on this count. Next, to store all paired connections, I created a list. I also created two methods, one to generate the line renderers and store them in the lines array. They will be deactivated by default, and another method to get a line from the pool if the line is not enabled or not being used by any pair. Simply call the generate_lines method in the start method so that it generates lines at the game's start based on the pair count. Now, when we drop a card, simply create a connection object, pass the references of both cards, and also pass the line to make a connection between them. Then, add this connection object to the list. Finally, reset the dragging card reference. In the pair manager class, pass the reference to the container where the lines should be generated. In my case, I just passed its own reference. I also created a line renderer prefab and passed that as well. We successfully made the connection logic. However, there is a problem here. If we connect cards in the same column, it should avoid the connection. Let's see how we can do this. In the card script, I added a property called group ID, which will take the card's parent name and return it. Now, in the drop method, add a check. If the dragging card's group ID and the current card's group ID are the same, it should return from here to avoid making any connection. By doing this, the connection will only be created if the card is in another column. Now, if we stop dragging, the line is not resetting. To fix this issue, in the pair manager, inside the update method, reset the dragging line and the dragging line visual if we stop holding the touch. We found another issue. If we try to connect to a card that is already connected to another card, we need to reset it first, and then make a new connection. Let's implement this in the code. First, create a method to remove the connection if the card is already connected. In this method, loop through all the connections stored in our connection list, and if any of the cards match the passed card, simply remove the highlight from both cards, disable their connecting line, and remove the connection from the list. Now, simply call this method before making a connection in the drop_on_card method, and also call this method when picking up a card. At the end, only one thing remains, checking all connections. I created a simple method that loops through all the connections and checks for wrong connections. If any of the paired cards' names don't match, set their connecting line's color to red, otherwise set it to green. At the end, simply check this boolean to determine whether we found any wrong connections or not. Now, in the drop_on_card method, call this method. Don't forget to set the card's name correctly in the inspector. By doing this, our match the pair card game is ready. If you found this video helpful, please like the video. If you have any questions, please ask me in the comments section, and I will respond.